What is up, my dudes? On today's video, I got a really awesome guest for you for today's podcast. His name is Jack, better known as Road Trip Monster on Instagram. He was, spoiler alert, he was bitten by a banded rock rattlesnake. And that's what today's podcast interview is about. I'm going to talk to him about his bite experience. We're going to talk a little bit about all his road trip traveling, herping all across North America, and I think he's also gone down into Costa Rica and whatnot too. But the main point of today's podcast is to learn all about that snake bite, how it happened. We're going to share some pictures. We're going to share the whole experience, going to the hospital, the symptoms, the recovery, all that stuff. So without further ado, let's jump into it. All right, so welcome everybody to the podcast. Thanks for joining us. Today I got a special guest for you. His name is Jack, better known as Road Trip Monster on Instagram. And he's here today to share a special story with you guys about venomous snake bite, something I'm super interested in hearing about. But first, we want to get to know you a little bit better. So first of all, dude, thank you for your time today, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me here. But yeah, we've never met before, so this will be all new information to me too. So if you could just give us some information on how you got into herping and photography and reptiles, all that stuff.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for having me on. I guess my little herping elevator pitch, really not concise, so it'll probably drag on a bit. Just remind me if I need to chop it up for time's sake. But basically,
Okay, no worries.
as young as I can remember, I was always out flipping rocks and looking for bugs. And at some point along the way, graduated to catching lizards in the backyard. Always have been a wildlife lover of all types, and had a particular fancy for the reptiles and amphibians. The herping really didn't kick off though until I really knew what it was. So I was out doing it all the time, looking for snakes, looking for lizards. But around, I don't know, maybe like 10 years old, I figured out what YouTube was and started looking online for snakes. And yeah, so from that point on, once I realized this was a real hobby that people actually did, it just took off. I got so into it, so excited about it. And for the rest of my childhood, essentially, up until about high school, I was always riding my bike or riding my skateboard and getting to the ditch where there's some water to look for water snakes. And took a little break after during high school and during college, just because I was having fun, hanging out with friends and
Right.
partying and playing sports and stuff. And so I took a little break, took a little hiatus. I sort of hid that part of my life for a little bit.
For sure, yeah.
Everybody, it was called snake catching instead of herping because that sounded cooler. And
Yeah, totally.
yeah, and then so kind of like to wrap it up, I think when I finished college and I moved out to Las Vegas for 2 years and took my first job, that was when I decided, hey, I might not be living the nomadic, crazy lifestyle of somebody that's unemployed and traveling the world, but I'm going to try to do both. I'm going to try to have a career and I'm going to try to get out as much as I can. So that's when I started the page. At the time, it was called Las Vegas Wildlife, and now it has evolved into Road Trip Monster because I'm in many different places. So yeah.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, he travels all over the United States. I think a little bit down into South America too, right? Like Costa Rica a couple times
Yeah, I actually
maybe.
have not driven there, so I kind of am cheating, but I just did do a recent trip to Mexico.
Okay.
And I have a
And
trip planned to Suriname in 2026, so that'll be cool.
oh, no way.
Yeah.
How sick, man.
I'm
Nice.
pumped.
Yeah, I saw that whole, I think it was Will Robertson, right? He just went to Suriname
Oh,
and
did
did
he?
a little series on it. Yeah.
I'll have to check out one of his videos. I know he posts a lot of YouTube, so I'll have to look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, your page reminds me a lot of him. You're just like running and gunning everywhere, flipping stuff and finding snakes.
Well, that is a compliment. Thank you.
So your home base is Houston, Texas?
Sorry, yeah, I never really got to that. I was born in Houston, and lived most of my life there. Went to college in the Dallas Fort Worth area, and then
Okay.
spent 2 years in Vegas, and now I'm back in Houston. Actually, Spring, a little bit north of Houston. So yeah, that's where I'm based out of. But you can catch me anywhere on any given weekend.
Right, yeah, that's what it looks like. Fun fact, I actually lived in Houston for 4 years.
Oh no way!
Yeah, I was in first I was in like the heart of Houston and then I moved over to Sugarland.
Cool. That's,
Yeah, for I was out there for work.
that's some good lamp habitat out there. Some good king snakes and milk snakes and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, well, I'd say that west of Houston is going to be your best chances of finding Lamprey peltis. That's what I would say. Other people might disagree, but
Well, the thing I found fascinating about Houston was like you see in movies where there's just like snakes everywhere, and you're like, no, it's not like that. Well, go to the bayou, the chocolate bayou in Houston, and it's literally like that. There's like, I would go fishing there and catch catfish out of there, which is nasty, right? Because I think they pump like treated sewage water into that thing. But I want to eat them, but there would literally be, they're probably Nerodia, right? Just water snakes just everywhere.
oh yeah, we've got tons of water snakes. That was what I grew up on, was just broad-banded water snakes, diamondback water snakes, and plain-bellied water snakes. Of course, ribbon snakes, and that was 90% of what I found because it was all I knew how to really target.
Right.
But yeah, tons of snakes. There are times where I'll target little like drying up ephemerals, little puddles that are about to dry up. And you'll go in there and you'll see like 10 plus water snakes, maybe even sometimes it's a cottonmouth or two, but it's like shooting fish out of a barrel. All those tadpoles, all those minnows get trapped and there's nowhere else for them to go. So the water snakes just come in, they start scooping up fish and eating to their bellies content.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that's unfortunate for the tadpoles. that
Well, they're gonna go to waste anyway. So
that's true. That's true. Uh, Yeah, dude, there's really, I'm sure you know, really good bass fishing all around Houston. Like I caught all my personal best largemouth are from Houston and Sugarland areas.
I'm spoiled. I've been getting into bass fishing a lot more over the last year. And I've always dabbled here and there with fishing, but recently I've really been picking it up and catching some good sized bass. And right behind where I live, there's just ponds for days, and yeah,
Right.
it's great spot for that. I'm getting into that.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Super cool. That's the great thing about that was my favorite thing about Texas was just the wildlife, man. It was crazy, especially in a metropolitan area like that.
Yeah, it's cool. Not a lot of people give Houston credit because it is kind of flat and swampy and humid and hot and lots of mosquitoes. So most
Yeah.
people don't go outside. But if
Yeah.
you can brave it, if you can survive it, it is the most biodiverse city in North America. Don't quote me on it, but it's one of the top three for sure. But I'm pretty sure it's number one. So really cool.
Wow.
Lots of wildlife if you're into like smaller things like plants and animals, and maybe not megafauna that are like big mammals, but we've got little small animals.
For sure. Yeah, I saw two coral snakes while I was there. One was at the bayou.
Nice.
And like you said, I was into snakes and herping, but like with the onset of social media, like it really opened my eyes to all the different things. And then I didn't know, like same with the water snakes. I was like, dude, is that a cottonmouth or a water snake? And then the coral snake, I was like, dude, is that a milk snake or a king snake or is that a coral snake? So I'm assuming by the way it moved and the way it acted, it was a coral snake. And I didn't know well enough at that time, so I just let it on its way. So
Yeah, yeah, I was definitely doing some learning on the fly. I think my mom caught wind of my whereabouts when I was younger, so she was like, "You can't do that," and so then I went through a process of trying to prove to her that I could tell the difference between the snakes, and so that helped a lot. Like just her getting mad about it kind of helped me learn, but um, yeah, man, fun hobby, weird one that just not a lot of people think of, and
yeah.
once you kind of open your eyes to it and catch that bug, it's hard to get rid of it. I'll probably be doing it for the rest of my life.
For sure, dude, for sure. And then we kind of try to scratch that itch a little bit with keeping, which I
Exactly.
know you're not much of a keeper, but I know you do keep a couple species, which will kind of segue into the snake bite story. But yeah, what are the couple different little things that you keep?
Yeah. So I didn't start keeping until somewhat recently. And it all kind of happened sort of naturally. So I'll walk you through it. The first set of snakes I got was from someone who unfortunately had some issues with their house, and they had to offload a bunch of snakes, right? And so he this guy was like, "Hey, I'll send you um, a California king snake and a lyre snake." And I was excited about the lyre, and I was trying to help him out. So I took the Cal King, and that was a cool one. It was from the Yuma area, so it's like a darker Cal King than you might normally see. And
Okay,
the lyre snake, very, very mildly venomous, not harmful to humans for the most part.
right,
Pretty cool snakes though. So those are my first two. And then I had a buddy give me another California king snake. This one was like the San Diego locality with the stripes, but he
right.
reversed it and made it all white with the black stripe. That's his Instagram name's Left Coast Herpin.
Oh
Shout
yeah,
out for that
yeah.
one. So so yeah, I had a handful of non-venomous snakes, and I had been thinking about venomous for probably like I don't know 4 or 5 years before I finally pulled the trigger. And yeah, the first one was I saw a good deal with a friend of mine, Clob King, Kyle Vargas. He had a good deal on a mottled rock, and I felt that that species was simple enough. And rattlesnakes are like sometimes they're like pet rocks. Honestly, they're pretty straightforward to keep. So I was like, that's a good first snake.
Right.
So I got that one. I also proceeded down the road, and I won't walk you through all the details of each one, but I now keep for venomous that mottled rock, a banded rock from the Zacatecas area, the green ones. And then I have a speckled rattlesnake, the white ones from
Nice.
TA specs is what they call them, the Taenus altus, white speckled rattlesnakes, absolute beauty. I was
Yeah,
just
those are
sort of
gorgeous.
blessing for someone to give me one of those. Good friend of mine, and then yeah, and then also last but not least, I have a blue insularis. It's actually not with me right now. It is actually staying with Kyle Vargas.
Okay.
He's taking care of it right now and gonna breed it, and I'll probably have a baby or two coming my way. But uh,
Nice.
yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. With
Yeah, those are sick, dude.
I did at one point have a reticulated python. It was more of a situation where somebody who didn't really like they kind of knew what they were doing, but it just got too big. And then
Right.
the wife started getting mad, and kids were on the way, and I kind of saw where it was headed. And he was like, "Hey, man, like, would you take the snake?" And so I took it for a couple of years, and finally found someone who was like outfitting a room in their house, making it bioactive, putting soil on the ground and vines.
Oh,
It was like the perfect come up. I was like, "Yes, please take him. He's going to be so much happier there." Uh,
right.
then in the it was a big enclosure I had him in, but not like that. So I don't have that snake anymore, but I did keep him for a while.
Yeah, I just got into retics and but super dwarf retics, which are still massive snakes, but yeah, that is a common theme. People getting retics and they keep them for maybe 1 to 3 years, and then they have a 10 to 15 foot snake on their hands in the first couple of years, and they're like, okay, where can I get rid of this thing?
I'll tell you what. So A, that is very sad, and it's a very sad truth. We see it all the time. And B, they are no joke to take care of every once in a while. You might just have like a snake that's super duper chill and very well mannered and stuff. But these are wild animals basically that are put in a small enclosure. And so the one that I had was, and they kind of have a little bit of a reputation. I don't want to like portray them as aggressive snakes or whatever, but I'll tell you what, cleaning the cage was a project because he didn't want me in that cage, and he was going to let me know. And so basically, I would have to remove him from the cage in order to clean that cage, because it wasn't just a little turd. He'd smear it all over in the water bowl, on the walls, everywhere. So, to be honest with you, out of all the snakes I've kept, venomous included, that snake scared me more than any of them. He was just so intense, so big, so fast, and it's not to like fear monger or anything, but it wouldn't be the first time somebody has died from one of those. And yeah, I would just do my best to kind of avoid situations where I was home alone doing cage
Right.
maintenance. Because if you know anything about like mixed martial arts or choke holds, you don't actually have to like stop breathing. It's the blood flow that goes to your head. So you get enough time spent with a snake wrapped around your head tightening, and it only takes about 15 seconds. The blood
Right.
flow is cut off. You might still have the ability to breathe, but if you're passed out, you can't breathe, right?
Exactly.
So scary kind of snake to think about that scenario, but otherwise, like again, I'm not knocking it. I think they're awesome snakes. You just have to be ready to take that challenge on, you know?
That is a great word of advice because, yeah, I've also kept. I live in California, dude. We're in like it's like Arizona for rattlesnakes. They're everywhere. So I've had Southern Pacifics and specks and
Yep.
all the rattlesnakes, and I thought they were kind of. I've had false water cobras. I thought they were like kind of the next to a king cobra, probably like or a boom slang or something on the higher end of like a risky snake to keep. And I've had these super dwarf retics since December.
Mhm.
And yeah, dude, they are crazy. You got to be ready. Like they got the craziest food drive of any snake I've ever seen. And like you said, not fear mongering, but if you open that cage, they think it's feeding time. And if you don't have food, you got to get them out of that food mode. And like you said, you can't just clean around them. You got to take them out. So it's definitely takes some work and commitment.
Yeah, I mean, I luckily didn't take any bites from that snake, and he was chill. I would handle him sometimes, but I just knew when the times were, and you can tell when he's kind of like on edge or trying to feed. You don't handle him in that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, not to shed a negative light, but you said it well. Like they can be a lot, and you just kind of gotta be prepared. But
Yeah.
really cool snakes, super awesome. I'd love to see one in the wild. I mean, it's cool, like the longest species in the world. Um, yeah, just not for everybody.
For sure. Yeah. All right. So you keep the mottled rock rattlesnake and the bandit. That's claw or Crotalus clawberus, right? Or Lepidus
Yeah, yeah, you had it was so Crotalus clawberi and
clawberry.
Crotalus, however you say it. And then
Yeah.
the mottled rock is just so they're both Lepidus. They're in the same genus. It's Crotalus lepidus clawberi and Crotalus lepidus is the mottled rock.
Got. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Lep
That's right.
leps for short.
And so, if you could, real quick, we'll kind of segue into what happened when you got bit. Um, I think a good thing to, because everyone thinks rattlesnake. Like even when I first saw your bite videos, I was like really concerned and worried. But people think rattlesnake and they think it's automatically, like if you don't get antivenom and you don't get to the hospital right away, like you're gonna die or you're gonna lose a limb. So if you can kind of just tell us about the potency of their venom, like if it's a hemotoxin or
Yeah, no, totally. That is a common misconception. We're actually very blessed in the United States. If you go out to Australia or to Africa, there are snakes that can put you in a coffin in a matter of 30 minutes to an hour kind of situation.
right,
That's really not the case for the most part in the United States. There are some abnormalities and things that happen, but generally speaking, our rattlesnakes don't have the worst venom. So 99% of the time, if you get bit and you're near a vehicle and you're in a city, you're going to be good. You're going to be fine. You're going to get antivenom, but that's not to undermine the seriousness that some rattlesnakes can do. The mottled rock rattlesnake that I got bit by, it's interesting you ask that because I have to admit, even in the moment after being bit, I didn't take their venom probably as seriously as I should have, and I'll explain why. So, um, yeah, right. I get tagged. We'll get into that later, but I was thinking to myself, in an effort to probably calm myself down a little bit, I was like, look, this is a lizard eater. They're about maybe at like the max, like the biggest mottled rock you might see is going to be like there's probably a record around like 3.5 feet or something. Usually they're small snakes, like two
Right, they're on the smaller end, so their
yeah,
yield
like
is a bit
they're compared to
smaller.
rattlesnakes, they're smaller ones. Don't know exactly what their like max limit is, but they're smaller rattlesnakes, right? So it's a smaller snake with the, in theory, a smaller venom yield, right?
Right.
And they eat lizards. And so I'm sitting there going, the amount of venom and potency it would take to kill a lizard versus a large mammal like a rabbit or a big rat, I'm thinking is much less. So, given
Right.
that I've been bit by a lizard eater, I'm kind of comparing it in my brain somewhere in between copperheads and like maybe a small Atrox. I'm thinking like that's kind of like the range of venom, right? And so it was interesting because when I talked to a few people later on, um, they were like, no, dude, mottled rocks can be really bad. And this is kind of an ongoing debate in my head. So I talked to a few people who were like, they know their stuff. Okay. These aren't like just some random people I'm talking to. They're snake experts. And they told me, no, mottled rocks can be really bad. For some reason, I guess reptilians can like get their heart rate like some weird science stuff. And they're telling me that it's actually harder sometimes to kill a reptile like a lizard than it is for a mammal. And there are certain localities of the mottled rock that can be worse. I had a guy quote tell me, I would rather take most Western diamondback rattlesnake bites as like a full grown adult than most mottled rock rattlesnake bites.
Huh.
So I to this day question that, and my
Yeah.
reasoning is that the venom yield, the size of that
The-
snake, and the amount of venom it could put in you, I just I'm sorry, like if that guy's listening, like I'm just not
yeah.
totally buying it, and I want to mention that because maybe there's some truth to it, but I just don't see it. And I to kind of like summarize, I will say that venom is super complex. You can have
Right.
the same species and two different snakes. One's from one mountain range, the other's from another. And for whatever reason, the venom compounds of each mountain range, you tend to get more venomous in one area, less venomous in another. And then even within the same locality, you'll get snakes that have different venom complexes between hemotoxins and neurotoxins.
100%. Yeah, I
From
know
what I
with
understand,
Mojaves, with
yeah.
Mojave rattlesnakes, there's some that they have that's called the Mojave toxin,
Mhm.
and it's more heavier on the neurotoxic side, or it's more of a blend of hemos and neurotoxins. And uh, yeah, apparently, if you take a bite from one of those versus the one that doesn't have it, then there can be significantly different effects.
Exactly. And from what I understand, they're finding that that's not only true for the Mojave, but a lot of the northern and southern Pacific rattlesnakes and timber rattlesnakes. And like, it's probably just a matter of studying it. There's not a lot of studies out there on venom. I'm sure there, to an extent, there are, but it seems that I keep running into this more and more. Where like, oh, new study comes out that shows actually it's not just hemotoxins. There's like a variable amount of neurotoxin in certain species. So generally in the US, we deal with hemotoxins, but yeah, there are snakes that aside from the coral snake in that context, but yeah, there's a mixture, and a lot of times you just don't know what you're gonna get. You don't know how much it might give you a dry bite where it injects no venom, or it might dose you with every last drop of venom it's got. You really
Right.
don't know. and you should always just take a bite seriously. Is kind of the best way to handle it.
Yeah, I think the environmental impacts of what they're eating and all that, and all the different bacteria and pathogens that they're exposed to, is definitely going to have a play on what proteins and that are in their venom for sure. So I wonder if, obviously, something in the wild versus something in captivity, I'm sure there's a difference in that venom as
That's
well.
really interesting. I've never really thought too much on that, and that I'll have to do some research more on that about how their diet or even their lifestyle affects their venom. But that's really interesting.
Yeah, I wish we had a lot more research around this kind of stuff, but like we talked about earlier, not too many people care about snakes. So,
Yeah. So the mottled rock, for the most part, like the bite I took, I'd say um my body seemed to handle it pretty well, and B, I was lucky to be bit by something that didn't have like an insane toxicity level. But I'll also mention I got bit by one fang only.
oh, okay.
In theory, to double what I experienced would have been a lot. It really would
Yeah,
have been a lot. And so I
oh,
think,
that's a really good point.
yeah, like I think that the mottled rock is, there's some truth to it being more than it probably appears for such a small rattlesnake. Um, and yeah, your best bet is to not get bit. But for the most part, I was lucky that I didn't take a worse bite, you know.
Yeah, I think it's maybe we can get into the bite story now because I think it's important to point out that it was also a food response bite, right?
Yep, yep, yep,
So a defensive bite, like you alluded to, could have resulted in less venom
yep.
or no venom. It could have just been like a hey, a warning. But in this scenario, it was a food response bite, so it was delivering venom as if it was gonna trying to take down a prey item to eat it.
Yep.
So that probably plays into this.
No, it's a really good point to make. Not only just for like the intensity of the bite, but also just to explain to people why it happened. A lot of
Right.
people like they're like, "Oh, you got rid of it, right? Like you killed it afterwards." It's like a mean animal, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, dude, I still have the snake." And I
Yeah.
explained that it was totally my fault. So I'll walk you through it. These are the mistakes I made. Probably more mistakes than I'm about to mention, but to keep it quick. So, first of all, you should never do this. I was in a little bit of a hurry, right? And so I just wasn't like dialed in. My mind wasn't in the right place because I knew I had to be somewhere quickly. I wanted to wrap up and finish feeding this snake. And because I was in a hurry, I made two additional mistakes. One was um I should have flicked on the light in my house, right? Because the light in my cage was like, it was like almost completely dark because it was getting low. I needed to replace that light. And yeah, so the lighting was kind of dim. That was mistake number one. I should have flicked on that light, or better yet, had that light replaced sooner, right?
Right.
And then number two, I had my long pair of feeding tongs sitting upstairs where at the time I was keeping my insularis. So I had the thought, let me run up and grab those. And I looked at the time and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go. And I grabbed the tongs that are a little bit shorter from that area. So those were like three mistakes right there. So then I go to feed, right? Done this probably 50 times now with that particular snake. I felt pretty comfortable with it, and I thought I had eyes on where its head was. And because probably partially because of that dim lighting and me being in a hurry, I should have been more sure. I should have double checked, like, well, even though it looks like the neck ends there, like this is exactly where its head is. I've got eyes on it. So I didn't do that. And I'm dangling and I'm keeping my hand outside of the cage, but
Right.
dangling that pinky rat. I think at the time it was like a smaller, light colored small hairless mice that literally is the exact shape and size of my finger. I mean, it's almost if you put them next to each other and squinted your eyes, you could barely tell the difference.
Was it live?
No, no, it was not. It was
Okay.
frozen.
Was it up to temperature?
Yeah,
Okay. So I was wondering if maybe if it was live, maybe it was like exactly the same temp as your finger too, you know?
yeah. I mean, I think I did warm that one up because in the beginning he was a little bit picky. But so long story short, as far as the bite goes, um, I'm dangling and kind of wiggling the way I always do, the wiggle the pinky to kind of make it look like it's alive and just get that interest out of the snake. But I kind of noticed this is taking a little bit longer than normal. Usually the snake starts to get close to it and look at it. And I'm like, well, where is he? And as soon as I have that thought of like, where's he at? I kind of look over and boom, it happened that fast. By the time my brain started to feel like something's a little bit off here, I was tagged and it was just done. And I remember yanking my hand back really fast and yelling out a choice word that starts with F. And
Rhymes with duck.
yeah. And I just kind of was like, oh my gosh, right? I looked at my finger, I saw a little red dot of blood, and then I put the cage back on,
Smart.
locked it up, and I walked straight to the sink and I started rinsing it off, which is recommended if you're in America, right? You don't want to tourniquet it, you don't want to do anything like that. You want to actually let that venom flow through your blood and kind of like diffuse throughout different areas of the body
Dilute
rather
it.
than concentrating it in one spot where it'll just do tons of damage and you'll probably lose your hand. So
Right.
so you don't tourniquet it. I went and just tried to rinse off excess venom from my finger and I
Right.
looked back at it just to be like, please be a dry bite. And by then it was starting to throb. And I kind of knew like, yeah, dude, you got bit. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's venom pulsing through your veins. And you kind of want to deny it at that point that like maybe it's like not that bad. Maybe I'll be fine. Maybe I won't need to visit the hospital. But better judgment told me like, no, get in your car. I changed clothes because I knew it was going to be a long night, and I got in some sweatpants and a comfy shirt. And then I wouldn't recommend doing that, by the way. That's probably stupid to say, but I got in the car and I started driving, right? And I made a call to the girlfriend and just said, hey, don't freak out. But on the way to the hospital, I got bit by my rattlesnake. Spoiler alert, she freaked out a little bit. Now she was cool about it, but she was like, do I need to leave work right now? Blah, blah, blah. She's a nurse. I was like, no, don't worry about it. I'm fine. Um, but so anyways, I got there. And if you have any questions at this point, let me know. I'll start getting into like the medical side of it at the hospital. But if you have any questions about like how the bite happened, what I thought right afterwards, or the pain or anything, let me know.
No, you're good. You have the floor. Keep going.
So so get to the hospital. By then, like, with so much adrenaline pumping and everything, you don't really feel the pain like crazy bad. It might be different for different experiences, but I was pretty comfortable with the pain level at that stage. And it's kind of funny. There's some like grumpy old man in front of me, like complaining basically. He was totally fine. And he was being really rude to like the staff. And after like a solid minute or two, I was like, "Excuse me, sir, I got bit by a rattlesnake. Do you mind if I like speak with him?" And everybody's like, "Oh, like yeah, okay, yeah, like, this guy has something going on here." And I
So
sat
polite.
in the lobby for like a couple minutes, like filling out paperwork, and then they took me in. And so I was appreciative that they got me in quick, but um, they were not very familiar with this species. I kept reminding them like this is not a copperhead, it's not a cottonmouth, it's not anything you would see in the Houston area. This is a mottled rock rattlesnake. It's in the desert. And it's going to be much worse than a copperhead bite was kind of the impression I was giving them. And so yeah, they sat me down in there's like the first room, which is where they started giving me some pain, injecting me with some painkillers that was something. And then, they start talking about like how I'm feeling. And after I'm kind of stable and they've done their tests and stuff, really weird. And this was the first red flag. They asked me like, okay, like we're coming in for your x-ray. And I was like, x-ray? This, it didn't break my bones. I think I should be good on the x-ray. And they're like, are you sure? Like, or it was actually an MRI or some crazy crap. And I was like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm gonna pay enough already. You don't need to do that. So that was kind of the first red flag of being like, I don't know if they know a lot about snake bites, but anyways, they moved me to a different room, and so I spend 48 hours before I get antivenom. And I'm kind of an idiot, first of all. Like, I get to the hospital and I'm generally thinking like they've got this under control, right? Like, this is their job, this is what they do. They'll take care of me. And yeah, about like 24 hours in, the swelling's getting pretty bad. I'm sort of letting them know, like, yeah, I might consider antivenom at this point. And I'm all, on a lot of painkillers. So I wasn't all there like mentally. And I think this was part of the problem, as I would have addressed this much sooner. But um 48 hours in, I wake up from a long sleep and the swelling has reached my shoulder now, to where like my shoulder is visibly like fat.
Oh
And
wow.
I'm like, guys, this is concerning. The next up is my chest, where my heart sits. We need to start talking about antivenom like now. And they were like not very receptive to it. They were like, well, antivenom you can react very negatively to it. We want to make sure you don't need it first before we give it. And
Yeah, I could also die from a freaking
yeah,
rattlesnake bite.
yeah,
What are you
the odds
talking
of like the
about?
venom messing me up, I think, are much worse than this anti-venom. So,
Yeah.
like at this point, I'm starting to, and I'm a really like relaxed, nice, friendly guy, probably overly nice sometimes. And this is where I start to be like, all right, they're just not listening to me. It's kind of pissing me off. So the next nurse comes in, and giving her some benefit of the doubt here, I think she was filling in and she hadn't been with the team for the last day or two. But she looks at my hand that is swollen, turning black, like big bulbous, like boil on my finger. And she looks at it with her eyes and asks me, oh, was it a venomous snake? And I was like, I almost said some really rude comment like, are you serious? Like, what, are you the dumbest person on this earth? Like, how do you not
Yeah.
understand? But like, yes, this is a venomous bite. Look at my hand. So that, just like that moment, my eyes were opened. I was like, I think I'm probably the most qualified person in this room to
Right.
like about venom.
Kind of
So
championing your own treatment.
yeah, so I told the doctor, who like I insisted I speak with her, and she was like very impatient with me, and she was kind of not taking me very seriously. To be honest, I think she maybe thought I just like wanted more pain meds, but I was telling her like, this hurts. Like, I think we need to take this seriously. And I told her like, I'm not doing this. I will unplug my stuff and I will leave this hospital if you don't give me antivenom in the next couple hours. And she's like, okay, let me talk to some people. Another nurse comes back in, bless her soul. She looks at me, and she was an older woman. She's like, yeah, that did not look like how it looked that last night. The swelling is much, much, much worse. And so that was enough for the doctor to give me antivenom. I took 11 vials of Crofab. Um, and from that moment on, the swelling started going down in the shoulder and the arm. And it really just came down to my hand at that point. So I spent, another like half day, and then I left. And the thing is like, for some people, maybe, but I don't think this is common. For some people, they might like go home, have a few days of like, ow, this hurts, and then they're fine. For others, and for me, It was like a 3 week long process of dealing with that bite where,
Okay,
oh my,
Jack,
what's
I
that?
hate to interrupt you. And I
Go,
know
go.
time flies. It's crazy. There's literally 30 seconds left.
No way.
So,
Okay.
do you mind? I'm going to FaceTime you since we both
Yep.
have iPhones and I'll just record it with the GoPro.
Perfect.
Work for
Perfect.
you?
All right. Yeah, yeah, that's good.
Okay, cool.
Wow, it does fly
I
fast.
know, it's crazy, dude. Yeah, just give it 1 minute. It's going to time out.
Okay.
Once it does, I'm going to hit record on the GoPro and call you on your phone, okay?
Perfect. All righty.
Sorry about
Sounds good.
that.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay, so it was you were talking about some people it's a quick recovery and some people, you were on like the 3 week
Yep.
mark. Were you still at the hospital at that point after 3 weeks?
No, sorry. So to clarify, I was out of the hospital in about 2.5 days, and maybe a little bit less because like I got there really late at night. The bite happened at like 8 p.m. So we'll say 2 days. I left the hospital, and I think I remember on day 16 just yelling audibly in like anger slash agony because I can deal with pain. I can deal with a lot of pain, but dealing with a lot of pain for 3 weeks straight, it really starts to get annoying. Like it really just starts to bug you. And the thing that got to me is because it was on the very tip of my finger. If I held my hand down by its side the way you normally would 90% of your day, all that blood starts flowing down to your hands, and you can actually like feel the weight of that blood rushing down to your hand, and it starts throbbing and pulsing and making weird like twitches and like convulsions. And so I had to go like this all day long, just raising my hand like I'm in elementary school, asking the teacher for a question.
Yeah.
That was me for the better part of a month. For like 3 weeks, I was just walking around with my hand raised.
Random people like, Jack, did you have a question? You're like, no.
It was so annoying. Now I went back to work within a week, but it was like kind of pointless because I work in an office majority of the time, and I couldn't really type with my right hand, so I was just chicken pecking stuff and doing a lot more calling. And yeah, but I think like one of the big takeaways for me is you might be able to handle the pain and be fine even after you leave that hospital, but where it really started to wear on me was 3 weeks in. And I think part of the frustration was less about the pain and more about my lack of mobility in my hand. I couldn't grab things properly. I couldn't, just do basic stuff that you do with your hand. And when you have that much time to sit there just stewing on your dumb mistake, yeah, it starts to just become more of like a mental battle where you're just like, A, you're kind of upset with yourself. B, you can't do anything. And C, you're kind of like, I lost my train of thought here. I think you're like more frustrated that you can't do basic things like picking up the water or going out and like doing normal stuff. So I would go on little hikes and I would herp around and like just walk around outside with my hand raised. But yeah, like it it hurt. I don't know how else to put it.
So kind of like a mental battle too of like not like self-pity but more like beating yourself up kind of like
Yeah, man. I mean, you feel like an idiot, and if you don't, you're probably are an idiot. Like you after something like that, where it's a controlled environment, you should know better than to like. I've been messing with venomous snakes my entire life, pretty much. And in all the sketchy situations I've been into, like out in the field, for it to happen inside my own home in a controlled environment was a little bit frustrating because I let my guard down. I got too comfortable with my surroundings, and I was like, oh, I've done this a bunch. And he's just sitting here in this little cage. Like, it's not as, and not saying I actually thought those thoughts, but yeah, I was very mad at myself for belonging to the statistic of snake bites per year.
Right.
How people can go, oh, this many snakes bit people this year.
Right.
And therefore, rattlesnakes are scary.
Right. Get your shovels and your shotguns. Yeah.
Yep. And the vast majority of the time, it's an idiot like me who is doing something wrong, being too close to a snake. It's not the snake's fault that I decided to purchase it and place it in my house and dangle my hand in front of its face.
Right. No, that's a really mature, responsible way to look at it. Question about, back to the bite for a second.
Yep.
And this is not to make somebody think it's, the right way to do it or whatever, but did your hand, when the bite actually happened, did your hand cross over into the cage because you had peeped in to see where it was, or was your hand still outside the cage at that point? So basically, did the snake have to come out and over, or was it just too close to the edge?
So, great question. For my purposes, I was outside of the cage when you look at the horizontal axis, and I think the vertical axis, I was well above the cage. I think when I moved in to look at it, I intruded into that. Now I'm above the cage. I'm not in it, but I'm a little bit above it, right where you would set the top of the cage.
Right.
And so I think I was just maybe, 6 to 8 inches above its head. But outside of the pain of that, top of the cage. And another thing I think worth mentioning is I know people who they're telling me my Lepidus, my Mottled Rock rattlesnake, has bitten through the cage screen at the top of my cage before, when I go to feed it. So you can't count on the top of the cage ever
as a barrier.
Yeah, in my experience, or in my particular experience here when I got bit, I think that I was basically inside of the cage at that point, more or less, because of how close I was to the snake, because the rocks stack up and it was a 20-gallon, and so there wasn't a ton of distance between the top of the cage and where the snake was.
So maybe a 20-gallon, approximately 18-inch sides, a stack of rocks maybe taking up 8 to 10 inches of that, so it was already about halfway up.
Exactly.
Okay, because I'm how did this little, because I know banded rocks, they're small. I don't know how big yours is, but how did it have that strike range? That's crazy.
Exactly. So, and to be honest, it all happened so fast. I probably was closer than I remember. You always want to remember yourself being better than you were, but I very easily could have been right inside of the cage. I know I wasn't going out of my way to stick my hand in there, but
right.
I was probably near the top, and that was just not enough distance. And yeah, you always gotta I know people, and I'm not this secure, but I know people who double, triple lock. They have the lock on the cage. They have the lock on a room outside of the cage, and they have a lock on maybe the room going into that room, and they have a triple safe.
Right.
So you can never be too safe with these snakes. It's kind of the point. People go super safe. Some people are more relaxed, and I've been more safe since. I was probably more on the relaxed end.
Yeah, I think the thing with the locks, to that extreme, is kind of getting your mind in that mindset, because I was saying, I've kept Southern Pacifics and Specs, and if you have other species, I had BCI and falsies and rat snakes and gopher snakes, and now I have retics, but you're going from, say, the falsie to the boa to the rat snake, and then you just keep treating everything the same, and now all of a sudden you're dealing with a rattlesnake. The lock is a good like recalibration of like what you're about to do. Like, okay, this is a whole different ball game now, you know?
Yeah, it really is important to. It's hard for us snake people sometimes because we've learned through experience that snakes are not as scary as people make them out to be. And so I think that I developed this level of comfort with venomous snakes where I was like, you know, as long as you kind of keep your distance, don't get me wrong, I've been struck at like many times, but kind of just was so comfortable with them to where it was a little bit too comfortable, and it didn't go through my protocol. To your point, like that's a really good point. I think it's more about, getting yourself in that right headspace than it is about you thinking that lock is gonna like necessarily do something, right?
100%. Dang, I just had a question and I lost it because I was messing with this light. But oh yeah, I had a Southern Pacific that was just way too chill. Same kind of thing. Like you just think like, oh, nothing will ever happen. I did end up selling him or trading him for some vision cages. So he was albino Hellray actually. He was amazing, dude. Oh, he was so cool. Dream snake. But yeah, now I got a couple vision cages instead for my new retics.
I'm not familiar with that, but they better be cool. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, they're cool. They're like just the gray plastic molded ones with the sliding glass front door, like Tyler Nolan and Chandler and all those guys have.
Stackable ones.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet. They're not cheap either, so that makes sense.
Exactly. So, another thing about locks, since you and I kind of discussed via text before, we wanted to make this educational. I think another good part about locks, even if it's like your house, you don't have kids, I presume, right? Like I have 3 kids. So that's another reason why I traded for the visions. I'm like, I should probably be a little more mature and responsible and not keep venomous at this point in my life. But is first responders. So say, God forbid, a tornado, hurricane, whatever in Houston, and and someone else had to enter your home for some reason, and they were, unbeknownst to them, you had rattlesnakes. I think that's another great reason for locks and those other safety protocols and tagging and labeling of all that stuff. And and I think that's another. Texas doesn't require permitting, right?
It's very, very easy. So there is a permit that I have. It's like exotic reptile permit or exotic pet permit. I forget which. When I go to get like my hunting license, I usually get the reptile and amphibian stamp, which is for herping in like West Texas. You kind of need one of those. And then there's also like an exotic animal license. I'll say this, it's exceedingly easy to get that license. There are no home checks happen, but like super rare. It costs you like $25 and maybe 5 minutes of your time and you're licensed. You know what I mean? So
but are you like on some kind of registry for like, say you called 911, do they know like, okay, we could potentially be walking into, that kind of situation, or is it just something that you have to show if for some reason you got audited? Or
to be honest, it's probably more just about them getting their cut of it.
Getting some money, yeah.
I know that the government now like has me stored in some database showing like this guy owns these venomous snakes, but the impression I've been given from most of the hot keepers around me are like, there's just not a lot of enforcement of people checking in on your cages. Like from what I understand in California and Arizona and certain places, like Fish and Game will come check your stuff and make sure it's up to standard and up to par and how you've got all the right locks and mechanisms in place. I don't want to like make Texas sound bad, but but it's much more relaxed out here. Much more relaxed.
No, I mean, as it should be, especially if it's a North American species. You know, it's like, dude. For example, like me with the Southern Pacific, like, dude, I could walk out behind my house right now and find one, you know? So how is that any different, really, you know? When you get into the exotics, obviously it's a little different because it's a different anti-venom. It's a different...
Exactly.
Yeah, animal. Different, whole different ballgame.
I do think Texas could improve some things. I don't necessarily think it's there with the native venomous snakes, but I do think... when you get into like mammals and weird imports of like
chimps
things that are not easy to take care of, we could do a better job of making sure people know what they're doing before they import a tiger to their house or whatever.
Right. You know? Yeah. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
That was kind of the last bit of my thought, but
okay. So getting back to the symptoms and healing process, how is your finger to... Well, first of all, how long has it been?
Shoot.
Was it like August last year?
It's been like about a year now.
Okay.
It's been a little over a year because I remember I went on a herping trip a few weeks after to West Texas. I just couldn't help myself, and that was in July. Mid-July, so we're about to hit a year, I think.
Okay. And as your finger and everything else associated, like, you know, whatever, blood pressure, movement of your arm, your finger, like heart palpitations, whatever, your mental, everything that comes along with it, is that all 100% back to normal?
Great question, and for the most part, yes, but it's a great question because it brings up a couple interesting things that I encountered when I was dealing with like the repercussions of this bite. So I have full mobility now. If you look at the finger that was bit, I can close it, I can straighten it, I can move it around. But right after I was bit, when it's all swollen, your hand's kind of stuck in a curled shape, where the finger that was bit was kind of shaped like a hook.
Right.
And
Captain Jack.
What's that?
Captain Jack.
Yeah, literally, dude. So I was like Captain Hook over here, and it was funny just because, sorry, I've got a dog running around.
No worries.
Annoying dog noises, so bear with me. But I met this guy, and he had been bit before too, and he's telling me he's kind of like more like a country guy, and he real tough, kind of rough around the edges guy, and he's like, he looked at my finger, he goes, "You got to straighten that finger out." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, why?" And he was like, so he tells me the story. And basically Dr. Green, who's like the top toxicologist for venomous snake bites in the U.S., you know, at least that's what I've heard. He went and saw this guy. And basically Dr. Green kind of distracted him for a second and took his curled finger like it was like mine and straightened it in one motion. And he said it like popped, and it took every bit he had in him not to just punch this guy in the face because it hurt so bad. But then this same guy that I was talking to, he told me I ignored him. I didn't straighten it out. And then he showed me his hand, and his finger was stuck. It was stuck in that position. All of his other fingers were straight, and it was just hooked. And he was like, "Try to straighten it." And I grabbed his finger, and I pulled as much as I could, and that finger was just cemented into that position. That scared the daylights out of me.
Yeah.
I was like,
you're like, I'm going to be maimed for life.
yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm going to have this weird finger. And at certain points, I wasn't actually sure if my finger was going to grow back, like, fully. I thought I might have maybe lost the tip or something. You can't tell when it's that, like, mangled.
Yeah.
And it's just a big black, bulbous, gross-looking thing.
It looked nasty. Do you mind when we're done, you can maybe send me some pictures and I can pop them up on the screen to share? Do you mind?
Not a problem. Yeah,
okay, cool.
It's gross, super fascinating.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, okay, going back to kind of the original question though, like I'm lucky to have full mobility. So far, knock on wood, there have been no like neurological issues, but I've heard of people having them. Like I've heard some people with copperhead bites, like randomly one day, 10 years later, all of a sudden it starts like hurting again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, super weird. And I've also heard from one guy that like anytime it gets really cold, his bite like starts hurting. And I have not experienced any of that. I actually went skiing not too long after the bite, and there were no issues. And you know, as far as like the mental aspect, dude, I'm an idiot. Like I still go out and I do the same thing, and I still walk around in flip-flops and tall grass, and I haven't changed too much, but what I have changed is there's a little voice in the back of my head now where when I start to feel like we've entered the zone of danger,
right,
what I'm doing is genuinely dangerous. I'm getting really close to the snake for the photograph, and I'm almost in biting distance. Like, I think that person, that little reminder in the back of my head is a little stronger these days. And I will say the first couple times I went out herping, I like when I would reach down to flip over 10, or when I would like go grab a rock as I'm kind of scrambling up something, I was a little bit more timid about stuff like that. But I feel like at this point I'm kind of back to normal, and not too much of a mental aspect, other than I'm a little bit more safer these days.
Okay. Yeah, I've always been like that. And when I enter habitat, it's like boom, my senses start going off. Like, okay, like if there's gonna be a snake, it's gonna be right here, you know. And I'm like watching every step. And I think a lot of people don't have that spidey sense about them, and they walk right past snakes and don't even know it. Because people ask me all the time, like, dude, how do you see so many snakes? And I'm like, well, because I know to look for them, right? It's like, I guarantee you, if we were both walking down this trail right now, I would see that rattlesnake coiled up under that bush, and you wouldn't. So
it's so true. You really just have to kind of train your brain, not just your eyes, but your brain to like turn that on. If you spend all day, if you're a weirdo like me, just thinking about snakes all day, like you'll start to see them, and you'll get better at spotting them.
It's all about picking out shapes and patterns. That's all it is.
Yep. While I've got my train of thought, before I forget, I didn't say my finger is straight, right? We talked about the hook shape. It kind of like cement itself into that shape. I did a lot of like at-home physical therapy. I didn't talk to a physical therapist, but I understood based off of the story I heard that Dr. Green was saying to straighten it out and move it, get that blood flowing back to that finger.
Right.
You don't just want it to sit there with no blood flow and not any movement while it just heals back into this shape.
Oh, yeah, that makes total sense. So all the ligaments and everything is repairing itself. If it's like that and it repairs itself like that, it's going to think that's normal now. That makes sense.
So, yeah, that's another reason why I was so painful. I was constantly straightening it out, and like it hurt a lot. But I just, after seeing that guy's finger, it was like, yeah, I don't want that. I want my hands to be able to do random stuff, like give high fives normally, whatever, you know?
Yeah, especially, it's your dominant hand, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so totally. Okay, and then follow up after the hospital, you got the 11 vials of Crofab, I assume, and then were you like on blood thinners or medications or anything like that afterwards, or?
I was on hydros and muscle relaxers, and that's kind of immature of me to say. There are also like some other things they gave me, some like topical stuff, if I'm not mistaken. That, yeah, I don't know. There's like a milder, less intense form of painkiller they gave me, and I was kind of bad. It it was a little bit tedious and not as effective, so I didn't use it as much. And yeah, I'm kind of the worst for even bringing that up because I don't remember really using it or what it was. But
okay.
For the most part, yeah, they send me home. They're like, here's your prescriptions. Use the painkillers, the hydros as needed. And I felt like I kind of needed them on certain days. It was a weird type of pain where it wasn't constant, but you would just go through these like iterations of convulsions where your hand starts like your finger starts wanting to like move, and the throbbing of the venom like starts pumping. So like even getting my heart rate up sometimes would increase pain.
That makes sense.
I like the more stagnant I was, the better. But that made me mentally insane. So it's just like this balance of like getting some movement around and kind of like moving around the house, but also if I moved too much or did too much, it would start to hurt really bad. So I just kind of had to find that happy medium.
Okay, and then that black abscess, I guess we'll call it, that formed on your finger. Did that eventually just get to a point where it just fell off and then it just became like a scab after that? Or what happened to that? Where did that thing go?
So, what happens is there's like, because there's venom and everything, and so your body, the same way a burn happens, it tries to bring a bunch of healing fluids to that wound. And so that's where the blister comes from.
Like kind of encapsulate it or like isolate it to that spot.
Yep. And so all those fluids like help heal the wound. And so a lot of people were like, dude, like how have you not popped that thing? That's disgusting. And I talked to the Dr. Green, who was really my main source of information. And he's like, no, keep it as long as you can. Let those fluids do their job. If you drain it, you're just going to take all your healing compounds away.
That makes sense.
And so I kept it as long as I could. After a while, it started like deflating, if that makes sense, where the skin had been stretched out, but the fluids had subsided. And so it was just like weird, like you could poke it and like it would like press inward. Almost like I don't know what example I can come up with, and then eventually the fluids left, and it just left this like skin that eventually dried up and then became a scab. One day I was at a pool party.
Oh, there we go.
And swimming around, and I was trying my best to keep my hand like out of the water, but it still got wet a little bit. And that scab just slid off, and it was like I could put it back on almost like a ring. Like it barely like didn't make a full circle, but it was like a cylinder-shaped black scab that wrapped around the sides of my finger and over the top of it. And eventually it just popped off, and there was like fresh pink skin. And that was the first chance I got to really look at that finger and be like, okay, yeah, like he looks okay under there.
Yeah, hold your finger up. So
that is
it's completely back to normal.
Yeah, full mobility.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Well, all right. Well, I kind of forget some of my other questions because I don't have let me see. I know we're getting kind of long now, but
for what it's worth, I'm in no big rush. So if you have a few more questions, don't sweat it.
I guess one quick one would be what advice would you have for somebody wanting to get into venomous snake keeping or even herping, because you're an amazing herper too. So just from a safety and like educational standpoint and strictly like venomous standpoint, not colubrids or whatever.
Okay. So we'll start with the keeping. In my opinion, you should always have, whether you want to call it a mentor or just a friend that knows a lot about this stuff. Don't get into it if you're just like blind. If you don't have any idea what you're doing, definitely take a few years of either herping or keeping non-venomous before you consider venomous. And when you do get into venomous, still have like someone who really, really knows what they're doing as a resource that you can very quickly ask questions to and get information from. Because what happens that day that your snake stops eating or it gets something messes up in its mouth or something and you have to get in close with it. So you always want to have people around you who can help you out and fill in the gaps of what you don't know. And I'd say it's, kind of similar with herping. Herping is not such a steep learning curve. You can go out and hike around and, see some water snakes and be pretty like, you're not in a life-threatening situation. But yeah, like taking as much information as you can. Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, even if they're like condescending about it or whatever it is. Keep learning, and then just don't get into like dealing with venomous animals until you're really comfortable with it. Like I said, guys, like I'm an adrenaline junkie. I do crazy stuff even outside of the snake world all the time. When it comes to like sports and various hobbies, but it took me 26 years of my life before I went and I felt comfortable keeping a venomous snake, because it's not just you that you're endangering. It's there's people around you, and yeah, you want to be as safe as possible. On a more lighthearted note, if you have that passion and excitement for snakes, where it's just like you just need it. You need to go herping, or you need to have that venomous snake, whatever it is. Lean into that and understand that the time will come for you to do those big things where you're taking that crazy road trip out into really venomous, dense habitat, or whether you get your first venomous snake. I'd say just like take your time, have fun getting really, really good at the common species and the non-venomous species before you dive into the venomous. Because as you can see from my experience, as someone who's been dealing with venomous snakes for, close to 20 years at that point, you can very easily still make a dumb mistake. And there's no amount of like, there's never too much training you can do. There's never too much learning you can do. So surround yourself with smart people, learn from them, and take your time before diving into something like this. Make sure that your lifestyle fits this.
100%, yeah.
Don't just get venomous snakes because, make sure, like I waited until I had a home. I bought my own home. I made sure that I knew I wasn't going to have kids anytime soon. And I'm not saying that that's like a thing you can't do, but to your point, when you had kids, you upgraded your setups, you got more secure setups, and that's an example of thinking about your lifestyle and making sure that it fits your lifestyle before you get into it. So that was not very quick, but that is my general advice for getting into it. But yeah, like in the herping context, dude, just go out there and have fun. Like get out into habitat, go hiking. Keep your eyes peeled, obviously. You watch where you step and put your fingers, yada, yada. But herping is a pretty fun and relaxing activity. It's when you find that venomous snake and you've locked eyes on it, that's when you need to have the danger radar on usually. It's like, all right, if I'm going to photograph this snake and get close to it, I got to be careful. But I always encourage people to just get out there when it comes to the herping. The snakes will come. It'll take time. You'll start to spot them eventually. But yeah, don't be afraid to just like go out. Even if you don't know what you're doing with the herping, you'll eventually learn through trial and error what works and what doesn't work. The times of day that are good to go, the times of year that are good to go, the type of habitat and plant species that'll indicate whether there'll be snakes out there. That comes with time. And the only way to get good at it is just to start doing it. So
For sure.
Yeah, experience is key with any of this stuff. So, going back to the keeping venomous, make sure you've got some experience under your belt before you do it.
Yeah, just to elaborate on one of your first points about like, I think some people have like the mindset when they're getting into it, like, oh, well, I'm new to this, so I'm not going to interact with the snake. I'll just feed it, water it, whatever. Well, there is going to come a moment when you have to take that snake out of its enclosure, and you have to know how to handle it properly, how to contain it in something else properly while you clean its cage, or like you alluded to, you might have to fix a lip that's stuck on a tooth or a stuck eye cap. These things happen, and you gotta be able to handle the snake confidently to deal with that. And then to your point about enclosures, a lot of people think snake first, enclosure second. Like you said, lifestyle and enclosure and security should be the first thought, and then the snake should be the last thought. A lot of people pick something up at a show or catch something in the wild, and then the enclosure is an afterthought. And you will be amazed. Like if you're someone who's getting into venomous, you should 100% keep some kind of stringy little colubrid first, because they will amaze you what kind of hole they can escape through. You might think you have all the bases covered, and then you come out one day and it's gone. And you're like, okay. So if that was a rattlesnake or a mamba or, something exotic, then you're screwed. And you're like you alluded to, you're putting your potentially your neighbors or your family members at risk. And then one last point to elaborate on, you were trying to keep it lighthearted at some point, but just to not to be too morbid, but you got to ask yourself the question, is this something you're willing to die for? Because that literally could be potentially the case. So, but like we also covered already, if you take the proper steps and you don't get complacent or too comfortable, then that shouldn't even be on the table, So, but yeah, like you said, dude, I'm so passionate about snakes, and I just realized I went through, just like you said, I went through a phase in my life where I didn't have them, and I didn't realize what I was missing, until I got back into it, and I realized, like, dude, what have I been doing for the last couple of years? Like, this is what makes me feel alive. And if you have that itch, there's nothing anybody can say or do that's going to stop you from doing it. So just take Jack's advice and take the proper steps, and it can be done safely, for sure.
Yeah, there's nothing more rewarding than earning your way to where you feel confident at that point that you're ready to take this on. The last thing you want to do is become that guy that gets bit, right?
Yeah.
You're such a hypocrite, but you definitely want to take your time, and it'll be more rewarding that way when you genuinely can talk about things in a way that sounds educated, and you have the confidence of knowing, I know what to do in various situations, and I know how to handle snakes and yada yada. Super good point of yours about snake first, cage second for a lot of people. Very wrong.
I'm guilty.
Oh yeah, I'm guilty of it too.
Yeah.
The first time I got a venomous snake, I knew I would be keeping it in a small like a food container box. They actually do really well in smaller things at first for this particular species. And so I used that as a crutch to be like, oh, well, I've got a couple weeks or a month before I got to start thinking about this. You don't want to do that. Go ahead and just, think about it in advance. Make sure you've got a secure thing, because you never know what'll happen. I've had snakes escape from cages, never a venomous one, and that's kind of why I only keep pit vipers mainly. Is maybe one of these days I might get something outside of the pit viper group, but they're pretty terrestrial, meaning they stay on the ground for the most part. That doesn't mean they can't escape. But when you start getting into your colubrids or, gosh forbid, your lapids, those snakes can climb. They're really clever, and you'd be amazed at what they can squeeze through and how smart they are. They've got all day to think about getting out of that cage.
All right, yeah.
And so, yeah, that is always a risk, and you can't be too safe with this stuff. As much as people, it does look cool, it does look pretty exciting, and it might even look pretty easy too, but it's constant work. If you're not ready for the work side of it, just don't get into it. Like, even for me, it was a eye-opening experience when I first started keeping non-venomous snakes. Like, I love snakes, and I found myself very frustrated at times. Like, oh my gosh, like, I have to go re-clean your water bowl for like the second time in 3 days.
Yeah.
And when you've got a lot of snakes, that it starts building up and it becomes like a job. And if you're someone who maybe likes snakes, probably isn't for you. You really gotta love them. You gotta really be obsessed with them. Otherwise, this stuff's gonna feel like a chore, and you're not even gonna be able to show off your snake when people come over, because the cage is gonna look like crap, and they're gonna be like, "Wow, you're a horrible person."
Right. When you're like, no, I swear I cleaned it yesterday. Yeah, it's like my son, Ryder. I have a 16-year-old son, and he doesn't live with me full time. But dude, these retics, dude, they freaking flip their water bowl all the time. I actually just ordered new water bowls because I've gone through everything. Like, I'm at my wit's end. But like, they keep flipping them overnight, and I go out there and the cage is flooded, and I'm like, dude, my son Ryder, he's like big on like perfect, keeping the cages like exactly how they need to be. I'm like, oh, if he saw this right now, he would so judge me. It's like, dude, you don't understand. I just cleaned it yesterday. But
you know what my least favorite part about retics is when they shed.
It's like an explosion.
Dude, yeah, and like sticks to the side of the cage. Like,
yes.
Sit there like scratching off.
Yep.
Oh man, it's not just a little shed that you like pull out in one piece.
No.
It's a whole ordeal.
It's like I've had a couple that fully shed, but most of the time it looks like a confetti cannon of snake skin went off in the cage, and they're big and strong, so they destroy everything in their cage when they're trying to shed. But so real quick, I know you had this video on Instagram of a prairie rattlesnake that blew up, and I think that was like the journey of your leveling up your social media. So go ahead and tell us real quick, plug your social media. Tell us a little bit about that video. I think it's pinned at the top of your page. That way people can find you and see what he's doing, because he's doing some awesome stuff with his you just found a indigo recently. He's got bison. He's got everything on his page. It's amazing.
So, as mentioned, you can find me on mainly Instagram and Facebook, although I do occasionally post on TikTok and YouTube. You can find me as Road Trip Monster, all one word. And for the most part, my page is about herping. I go out and I'm looking for snakes and I'm photographing them, and I post videos of them. But generally, I do just love cool landscape shots and other wildlife. I'm big into predators of all types. I was just photographing black bear last weekend, actually.
Oh yeah, that was sick. I saw that.
Yeah, I travel basically like anything I can cram into a weekend trip. That's what I do. I'm out traveling on most weekends. That video was the result of a long tenure of posting videos almost daily. So I started the first wildlife page back in 2019. And it wasn't until about 2023 or 2024 that I had a video go viral to where like I gained, I don't know, like 10,000 followers from that video probably. And what it was just me walking down a road, and there's a prairie rattlesnake in the road, and this thing was just like, it just sprung into action. It was just laying there, steady as can be, like a stick on a road. And as soon as we got to a certain distance that it didn't feel comfortable with, it just jumped into this striking pose.
Yeah.
And it was like a really like bow-legged, weird, wiry striking pose on top of it. And I think it probably startled a lot of people that watched it who like aren't snake people. And for whatever reason, I don't think that video is all that crazy compared to other videos I posted, but every once in a while, like the algorithm just picks something up, and so yeah, that video got like 9 million views, and from there I just kind of like built the momentum, and it didn't really change much. I was already posting a lot of snake content, so yeah, as far as like on my page, you're not going to see as much keeping content. Although I do, I've got like a subscribers channel on my Instagram that costs like 99 cents a month. I'm not asking people to go follow that, but if you're that excited about it and you really want to see my venomous snakes, that's where I post it. I just don't want to mix keeping and outdoors up too much.
Right.
Like I started all this from the get-go, being passionate about seeing animals in their natural habitat. And over time, I just couldn't escape it. Like, I just couldn't escape the allure of having a really cool snake in my house. But that's mainly what I'm about. And so, if you're interested in seeing more of, like, the keeping content, then you'll have to go to my Instagram and subscribe. I do occasionally post the videos of snakes that I keep. But, yeah, most of my page, I try to keep it geared towards natural wildlife.
Yeah, my page was, like you said, like you don't want to mix up all these different things. So I had just a herping page, and it was Brian _ Crotalus or Crotalus. And it was just all California herping stuff, a little bit of Arizona herping. And then now I got these super dwarf retics, and I changed my name, and now I just post videos of the retics, and I'm not trying to mix in the herping. So now I'm like, oh, should I start another page just for herping? But yeah, it just gets too much to keep up with. So
yeah, I do a little bit. Like, I'll post videos of me skiing or videos of me mountain biking or slacklining on my page, but it's very few and far between. The most of it's about landscape shots, other wildlife, and mainly snakes is kind of the thing. So yeah, I don't know. There are some people in the herping community that think keeping snakes is wrong, and so I just, I don't like to mix the two too much on my page. It just aesthetically looks a little bit better to keep it one or the other.
For sure.
But that's really the main thing. I'm not like that, choked up about it. I'm not that worried that people are going to see I keep. It's just, I started the page being a wildlife lover, and I kind of want to keep it geared towards wildlife. It's just a personal thing.
100%. Yeah, guys, go check out his page. If you like snakes and outdoor, it's an amazing page. So go give him a follow. Jack, thank you so much for your time tonight, dude.
Hey man, thanks for having me. It's a privilege and an honor to be able to spread what I love with the world, and hopefully prevent somebody from getting tagged.
Yeah.
Don't do
For
that.
sure. Yeah. You're everyone who likes venomous snakes, that's like the number one fear. And like you said, you hate to become a part of the statistic, and then everyone is like your mom and everybody's like, oh, I knew it, I told you so, so
So true.
yeah. But all right, dude, thank you so much for your time. I'm gonna sign off and go get me some dinner, but
Yep.
I appreciate you, man, and we'll keep in touch.
Sounds good, man. I'll try to remember to send you those photos of my finger before the night ends.
All right, perfect. No rush, man. It'll take me a while to edit this and all that, but yeah, I'll try to make a cool thumbnail out of whatever you send me.
Cool.
All right, buddy. Yeah, it was great. It was great talking to you, meeting you, brother.
Yep.
Bye. All right, guys, there you have it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you learned a ton from that. Jack was a super cool guy. Really awesome talking to him. Go ahead and give him a follow. And thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. I got a couple other really awesome guests lined up, so stay tuned for the next one, and we'll catch you later. Peace.